Hi y'all, welcome and welcome back to this video on the history and development of the ethics of care. The ethics of care did not appear overnight. It emerged gradually, first through scattered insights about emotion and relationality, then through clearer articulation by feminist scholars in the late 20th century, and finally as a robust moral and political framework. Its development reflects a broader feminist challenge to moral theories that prioritized abstract principles, independence, and rational detachment. At each stage, care ethics grew by taking seriously the experiences and practices of caring, especially those traditionally performed by women, and treating them as morally significant. Early hints of a care-centered moral outlook can be found in writers such as Mary Wollstonecraft, Catherine Beecher, and Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who emphasized education, social reform, and the ethical value of caregiving. But these ideas remained scattered until the 1980s, when two key figures, Carol Gilligan and Nell Noddings, crystallized them into a distinctive approach to moral life. Carol Gilligan, working as a psychologist at Harvard and writing in response to Lawrence Kohlberg's influential theory of moral development, argued that moral reasoning does not always follow the abstract, rights-based voice of justice favored in Kohlberg's model. Studying children's responses to moral dilemmas, she found that many articulated a different kind of moral reasoning, one focused on relationships, context, and response to needs. This voice of care, she argued, is not inferior or immature, but represents an equally legitimate moral perspective. Gilligan noted that girls and women voiced this perspective more often, not because it was biologically determined, but because their social experiences attuned them to relational responsibilities overlooked by traditional theories. Her work challenged the assumption that principled, rule-based reasoning is the prototype for all moral judgment. Building from a different disciplinary angle, philosopher Nell Noddings published Caring, a Feminine Approach to Ethics and Moral Education in 1984, offering the first full philosophical account of care as the foundation of ethics. Noddings argued that the most basic moral experience is the encounter between the one caring and the one cared for. Rather than abstract duties, moral life emerges from concrete, responsive relationships. She grounded ethics in natural caring, our instinctive desire to respond to and support others, and claimed that ethical caring arises when we extend that desire through reflection and commitment. Noddings emphasized attention, empathy, and relational responsibility, positioning care ethics as an alternative to the dominant moral frameworks of Kantian deontology and utilitarianism. While Gilligan and Noddings sparked the development of care ethics, the approach matured significantly with the contributions of Virginia Held, who helped transform care from a gender-associated perspective into a sophisticated moral theory. Held argued that care is not merely a private virtue or psychological orientation, but a central moral and political value that ought to guide institutions as well as individuals. In works such as The Ethics of Care, she emphasized that humans are fundamentally relational and dependent, especially in childhood, illness, disability, and aging, and that moral and political structures must reflect these realities. Held also challenged the separation of public and private life, arguing that caregiving has been unjustly relegated to the private sphere and treated as morally insignificant. Her work positioned care ethics as a serious rival to traditional moral theories and as a framework capable of guiding social and political life. Around the same time, Sarah Rudick contributed to the development of care ethics through her influential book, Maternal Thinking. Rudick examined the practices involved in mothering, arguing that they cultivate distinctive forms of reasoning, preserving the child, fostering growth, and shaping acceptable behavior. These practices generate a set of virtues, attentiveness, humility, responsiveness, that can inform broader moral theory. Although she did not claim that only biological mothers engage in this kind of thinking, Rudick insisted that the experience of caring for children reveals moral insights traditionally ignored by male-centered ethical frameworks. In the 1990s and 2000s, care ethics expanded further through the work of Eva Feder-Kittay, whose writings emphasize dependency, disability, and justice. In Love's Labor, Kittay argued that all people depend on others at various points in life and that societies must account for this universal dependence. She introduced the concept of dependency work, the labor required to care for individuals who cannot fully care for themselves. And she emphasized that caregivers themselves need social support. Kittay's work bridged care ethics with political philosophy, insisting that any just society must acknowledge the burdens and the moral significance of care. Perhaps the most influential contemporary theorist of care is Joan Tronto, who developed care ethics into a comprehensive political framework. In works such as Moral Boundaries and Caring Democracy, Tronto defined care as a species of everything we do to maintain, continue, and repair our world so that we can live in it as well as possible. She identified stages of care: attentiveness, responsibility, competence, responsiveness, and solidarity. Each of those with corresponding moral virtues and vulnerabilities. Tronto argued that care is a matter not only of personal morality, but also of democratic life, social justice, and public policy. Her work expanded care ethics beyond individual relationships to the level of institutions, citizenship, and global politics. More recently, Maurice Hamilton has argued for an embodied ethics of care, emphasizing the physicality of caring practices and the moral significance of bodily engagement. His work further broadens care ethics into fields such as business ethics, professional practice, and social philosophy. Across its development, the ethics of care grew from a challenge to gender-based moral models into a rich, multi-layered family of theories. What began as an effort to recognize women's moral experiences became a substantive ethical framework emphasizing relationality, interdependence, attentiveness, empathy, vulnerability, and the social dimensions of care. Today, care ethics informs debates in education, medicine, political theory, economics, environmental ethics, and human rights. Its history reflects the ongoing effort to understand moral life not as a matter of detached principles, but as a practice rooted in relationships and the cultivation of human well-being. Alright y'all, that's all for now. If you're interested in more videos on philosophy and ethics, take a look at the videos posted on our channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.